The forward operating base in Kandahar province was a fortress of sandbags, concrete barriers, and constant tension. It was July 2012, and the summer heat turned the Afghan desert into an oven that tested the limits of human endurance. Inside the operations center, a SEAL team was preparing for a high-priority mission, checking equipment and reviewing intelligence with the focused intensity that defined America's elite Special Operations Forces. The team was led by Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, a veteran of multiple deployments with a reputation for tactical brilliance and absolute confidence in his abilities. His team consisted of 6 operators, each one a master of their craft, each one accustomed to being treated as the best of the best. They moved through the base with the swagger that came from knowing they were the tip of the spear, the ones called in when conventional forces couldn't get the job done. If you believe in never judging people by their appearance or underestimating those who've proven themselves in battle, hit that like button right now. And stay until the end, because what this SEAL team is about to learn will humble them in ways they never expected. As Morrison and his team headed toward the armory, they passed a female soldier walking in the opposite direction. She was small, maybe 5'4", with a slight limp that suggested recent injury. Her uniform was dusty, her face drawn with exhaustion, and a fresh bandage was visible on her left forearm. Her name tape read Chin, and she wore the rank of sergeant. She kept her eyes forward as she walked, not seeking attention or acknowledgement. One of Morrison's SEALs, a hulking operator named Danny Bear Rodriguez, made a comment just loud enough for his teammates to hear. "Check out the wounded sparrow." Probably hurt herself doing admin work. Another SEAL, Marcus Webb, chuckled. "Bet she's heading to medical to complain about her paper cut." Morrison didn't participate in the mockery, but he didn't stop it either. He'd seen countless soldiers on these bases, and he developed a certain cynicism about those who weren't in direct combat roles. In his mind, there were operators, and then there was everyone else. The fact that this soldier was injured only reinforced his assumption that she couldn't handle the real work. The SEALs continued to the armory, got their gear, and headed to the briefing room where their mission commander was waiting. When they entered, they found Colonel Patricia Hayes, the base commander, standing with the Air Force liaison officer, and someone they hadn't expected to see, Sergeant Chun, the wounded soldier they'd just passed in the hallway. Chun stood at ease, her expression neutral, showing no sign that she'd heard the SEAL's comments. But Morrison felt a flicker of unease. The colonel's presence, combined with this soldier's unexpected appearance at their mission briefing, suggested something he'd missed. Colonel Hayes didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Gentlemen, your mission tonight has changed. Instead of the compound raid you were briefed on, you'll be conducting a high-risk rescue operation. 24 hours ago, a CIA operative was captured by a Taliban cell operating in the mountains 40 clicks north of here. We have solid intelligence on his location, but the window for extraction is closing rapidly." Morrison leaned forward. "Ma'am, my team is ready. What's the tactical situation?" Hayes turned to Chun. "Sergeant, brief them." Chun stepped forward, and for the first time, Morrison noticed details he'd missed. Her boots were worn in a way that suggested extensive field time, not garrison duty. The bandage on her arm was field dress, crude but effective. And her eyes, when they met his, held something he recognized, the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd seen real combat. Chun's voice was steady and professional. 72 hours ago, I was embedded with a Special Forces team conducting reconnaissance in the Tora Bora region. We identified a high-value target compound and were in the process of establishing patterns of life when we were compromised. The enemy response was immediate and overwhelming. During the firefight and subsequent extraction, I was separated from my team and spent 36 hours evading capture while making my way to an extraction point. Bear interrupted, his tone skeptical. "You're saying you evaded the Taliban for 36 hours alone?" Chun's expression didn't change. "I'm saying I conducted a tactical withdrawal through hostile territory while being actively hunted. Yes. During that time, I observed the compound where the CIA operative is currently being held. I have first-hand knowledge of the layout, the guard positions, and the terrain approaches." Morrison felt his certainty begin to crack. "What's your specialty, Sergeant?" Chun's answer was matter-of-fact. "I'm a combat controller with the Air Force Special Operations Command. My job is to deploy with Special Operations Forces and coordinate air support in hostile environments. I've completed 5 deployments, conducted over 200 combat missions, and I hold expert ratings in close air support, terminal guidance operations, and forward air control." The room went silent. Combat controllers were among the most elite operators in the military, undergoing some of the same training as SEALs and Army Special Forces. They were the ones who jumped into hostile territory ahead of everyone else, who called in precision airstrikes danger close to friendly forces, who lived and died by their ability to stay calm under fire. Morrison suddenly felt very small. Webb spoke up, his earlier mockery gone. "Sergeant, the wound on your arm. How did that happen?" Chun glanced at the bandage. "Shrapnel from an RPG that hit about 3 meters from my position during the firefight that separated me from my team. The medics wanted to medevac me out, but I refused because I have intelligence critical to this rescue mission." She paused. "The wound is minor. I'm cleared for duty." Colonel Hayes added, "Sergeant Chun has volunteered to accompany your team on this operation. Her knowledge of the compound and the surrounding terrain is essential to mission success. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, she'll be embedded with your team as the JTA Key Joint Terminal Attack Controller. Any air support you need, she coordinates it." Morrison felt shame wash over him. He'd mocked this soldier, judged her based on her size and gender, assumed she was weak because she was wounded. And she was actually one of the most highly trained combat operators on the entire base, volunteering to go back into danger despite being injured. If this story is making you reconsider your assumptions, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel. We share stories about people who prove that courage, skill, and determination have nothing to do with gender, size, or appearance. Your subscription helps us continue sharing these important lessons. "Ma'am," Morrison said, his voice tight, "my team will be honored to have Sergeant Chun with us." Over the next 4 hours, Morrison's team prepared for the mission with Chun's input. She provided detailed intelligence on the compound, every building, every guard position, every possible approach route. She'd memorized it all during her 36 hours of evasion, knowing that the information might save American lives. As the team geared up, Morrison approached Chun privately. "Sergeant, I owe you an apology. My team and I made comments when we passed you earlier. Comments that were inappropriate and disrespectful. We judged you based on your appearance, and we were completely wrong." Chun looked at him for a long moment. "Sir, with respect, I don't need your apology. I need you to treat every soldier with the respect they deserve, whether they're a SEAL, a combat controller, or a supply clerk. Because the supply clerk might be the one who makes sure you have ammunition when you need it, and the wounded soldier you mock might be the one who saves your life." Morrison nodded, the lesson hitting home. "You're right. And I promise you, my team will learn from this." The mission launched at 020 hours. 2 MH-60 Black Hawks carried the SEAL team in Chun toward the target compound, flying nap of the earth to avoid enemy radar. Chun sat among the SEALs, running through her pre-combat checks with the calm efficiency of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. When the helicopters approached the landing zone, enemy fire erupted from multiple positions. Tracer rounds cut through the darkness, and the pilots took evasive action. Chun was instantly on the radio, her voice clear and controlled. "Viper 1-3, this is Hammer 2-6, taking effective fire from grid. November-Victor-7-8-4-2-1-5. Request immediate suppression. Danger close. Friendlies 200 meters south." 30 seconds later, an F-16 screamed overhead, and the enemy position erupted in flame. The helicopters landed safely, and the team fast-roped to the ground, Chun moving with them despite her wounded arm. The assault on the compound was textbook perfect, guided by Chun's intimate knowledge of the layout. She directed the team through approach routes she mapped during her evasion, avoiding enemy positions she'd observed. When they encountered unexpected resistance, She called in precision strikes from her 10 warthogs that cleared the way without endangering the hostage. During the breach of the main building, an enemy fighter emerged from a hidden position, his weapon trained on Morrison's back. Chun, operating on pure instinct despite her injury, fired 3 rounds that dropped the threat before Morrison even knew he was in danger. The CIA operative was recovered alive, and the team extracted under covering fire that Chun coordinated with multiple aircraft simultaneously. Her calm voice directed A-10s, F-16s, and Apache helicopters in a deadly ballet that kept the enemy suppressed while the Black Hawks landed and recovered the team. Only when they were safely back at base did Morrison realize that Chi's wounded arm was bleeding heavily. The exertion of the mission had reopened her injury, but she never mentioned it, never let it affect her performance. As the medics worked on Chun's arm, it required 23 stitches. Morrison gathered his team. What we did today was wrong, not the mission. The mission was perfect. But what we did before the mission. We judged Sergeant Chun based on her appearance. We assumed she was weak because she was small, inexperienced because she was wounded, incompetent because she was a woman. And she turned out to be one of the most capable operators any of us have ever worked with. She saved the mission. She saved our lives, and we need to be better than what we were. Bear, the SEAL who made the wounded sparrow comment, spoke up. I was wrong, sir. I let my ego and my assumptions override my judgment. Sergeant Chen is a warrior, and she deserves our respect. The other SEALs nodded in agreement. Webb added, she's tougher than most of us. Evaded the Taliban for 36 hours, got wounded, refused medevac, then volunteered for a high-risk mission. That's not just tough. That's exceptional. Morrison visited Chun in the medical tent later that night. She was sitting up, her arm freshly bandaged, reviewing after-action reports on a laptop. Sergeant, the mission was successful because of you. You provided intelligence that made the operation possible, and you executed flawlessly in the field. My team wanted me to tell you that you're welcome on any mission we run. Chun smiled slightly. That means more than you know, sir. But I'd prefer if next time your team didn't assume I am useless before I prove otherwise. Morrison felt heat rise to his face. You heard the comments we made. Sound carries in these hallways, Chun said. But I've heard worse. I've been fighting assumptions my whole career. People see a small Asian woman and they make judgments. The key is to keep proving them wrong until they stop making those judgments. You shouldn't have to, Morrison said. That's on us, not you. Chun shrugged. Maybe. But every time someone like me proves herself, it makes it a little easier for the next woman who comes along. So I keep proving it. And eventually, maybe people will stop being surprised when women succeed in combat roles. 2 weeks later, Morrison's team was called back to the same operations center for another mission brief. When they entered, Sergeant Chun was there again, this time without bandages, looking rested and ready. Not a single member of Morrison's team made a comment. Instead, Bear approached her directly. Sergeant Chun, it's good to see you. We're glad you're on this one with us. Chun's smile was genuine. Thank you, Petty Officer Rodriguez. I'm glad to be here. The mission was another success, and it became the first of many operations where SEAL team and combat controller worked side by side. Morrison made sure that his team's experience with Chun became a teaching moment. He shared the story with other units, not to embarrass his team, but to help others avoid making the same mistake. Chun continued her career, eventually becoming one of the most decorated combat controllers in Air Force history. She trained countless operators, both male and female, and she never let the doubters and the skeptics slow her down. When she finally retired after 22 years of service, her ceremony was attended by operators from every branch of Special Operations SEALs, Green Berets, Rangers, Delta Force, all of whom had worked with her and learned to respect what she brought to the fight. Morrison, by then a captain, spoke at her retirement. Sergeant Chun taught my team a lesson we should have already known. Never judge a warrior by their appearance. Judge them by their actions, their competence, their courage under fire. She proved that size doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter. What matters is skill, determination, and the willingness to put your life on the line for your brothers and sisters in arms. Sergeant Chun did that every single day of her career, and we are all better for having served alongside her. This story reminds us that our assumptions about people based on their appearance, their gender, or their size are often completely wrong. That the person we dismiss might be exactly the person we need most. That respect should be given freely, not earned through repeated proof. If this story challenged you or changed how you think about capability and courage, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment about a time when someone proved you wrong, or when you had to overcome others' assumptions about you. These stories matter because they chip away at the prejudices that hold us back. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being willing to examine your own biases. Until next time, remember that warriors come in all shapes, sizes, and genders. And the ones who prove themselves in combat deserve our respect, our gratitude, and our willingness to learn from our mistakes. Never judge the soldier by their size. Judge them by their courage.